and welcome back to my channel. Today's video is gonna be all about books that I wish I could read for the first time again. Just because they were so good and like the first read through was like the most impactful, and I wish I could repeat the feelings that I had on my first go around. So yeah, I thought this will also be quite nice to like show off a little bit of like different books that maybe aren't like my favorite books, but like had a really had like an impact on me. Let's start with the first one, and the first one is actually Shutter Island by Dennis Lee Hahn. And this one is also a book that has a movie made about it, like quite the well-known movie made about it that I haven't watched, which is like a theme on this channel, to be honest. All of those movies about that were books, and I haven't seen any of them, pretty much. But yeah, this one is a story about like two detectives that are supposed to investigate the breakout of a patient of an asylum that is on Shutter Island, and they come there and there's a really big storm, and it is really creepy from there on. And this book has like the best plot twists and story turns ever. It is so psychologically horrifying, and just the whole feeling you get by reading the book and not really knowing what's going on and stuff. It was really great to read. And yeah, I just wish I could read it again without knowing what is going to happen, because it was just I mean, I think if you watch the movie and then read the book, it was also be quite spoilery, so yeah. I mean, the ending is pretty much the same. I mean, I haven't watched the movie, as I said, but my partner told me how the movie is going, and I do think that the main story and stuff is like pretty true to the book. And so yeah, if you watch the movie, the book will probably not have the impact it had on me without having seen the movie. And the other way around, I don't think the movie would have much of an impact on me because I know the story now. And yeah, this one is one of those books where I would be like, yeah, you have to read it once. Like, other than that, it's not a book that I would reread, but yeah, the first read through, pretty incredible. The next book was also one of those where you don't really know what's going on a lot of the time, and that is Area X by Jeff Vandermeer. And mostly the first one. This is like a trilogy. Sorry, a slightly different perspective. I had to let the dog in. He tends to want to lie behind me whilst I film. Yeah, the focus is on the first one. These has all three in it: Annihilation, Authority, and Acceptance. And there's also a film, and I've watched the film. I haven't only watched Harry Potter. Like, I haven't even watched The Hunger Games, if you can imagine that. It's just like, I'm not much of a movie person around here. But yeah, the film is quite a bit different. It doesn't have the same feeling for me as the book has, but it's just one of those books you don't get answers throughout a lot of the book. I mean, reading the first one, at the end of it you pretty much still don't know what's going on, and the third and the second do a little bit of explaining, but it's much of like, oh, it could be that, it could be that, we're not quite sure. And to be honest, I loved it in this book, because just out of the descriptions and the not knowing and all of this, it's just really, you want to know what's going on, and you want to like kind of think about it and maybe have a few guesses, but you can't really guess with this book because you don't have that much information. You pretty much only know what the main character knows, which isn't much because she's in it and nobody is explaining anything to her. And yeah, I mean, if you don't know what the book's about, sorry. It's about like an area, Area X, where they don't know where it came from, but there was a bubble all of a sudden and that expands, and if you go in there, you tend to not come out again. And in the bubble, things seemingly mutate, or like all of the animals disappeared or changed, and yeah, the main focus is on 4 women here who go into the Area X. After the last group where there were only men. Could also be 5 women, I'm not quite sure right now. But yeah, they go in there because they are supposed to search for the last troop and to find out what is happening and hopefully come back out. And our main character is the wife of one of the guys who went in there before. And obviously there's military around it, and it's a military operation, and so there's a lot of not telling, and you aren't allowed to know things and stuff, like security measures and all of that. And yeah, the whole thing pretty much is about finding out what exactly is Area X and what is happening, and yeah, what should we do, or should we do anything? And it's just a really big mystery for most of the book, and I really enjoyed it because it wasn't like one of those annoying mysteries where I was like, oh, tell me. I was like, oh, I wonder. And you don't have to tell me because I like wondering in this case. And yeah, you could also only read the first book. I know that the books aren't for everyone, like they pretty much split the readers. But I think you can also read the first one as a standalone, and if you don't want to know anymore, and you can live with the uncertainty of what had happened. I think that's also pretty much fine, or you can just watch the movie. It's a really, really pretty movie to look at, and yeah, it does a great job of portraying the mystery and the horror that comes with not knowing. Yeah. So the next one is a book, I think it's pretty much splitting people as well. It's 13 Reasons Why. There's a Netflix show about it. I haven't watched the Netflix show. I'm not interested in watching it because it goes further than the book. And I don't think there should be a further than the story of the book. I got this as a gift when I was like, I think 12 or 13, by a family member. And I think this is one of the best gifts I got given at that time. It's pretty much a book about the main character as a boy, and he gets some tapes. They just are at a store step, and they tell the story of a girl who took her own life, and yeah, she has 13 tapes, and she tells pretty much the story of why she did what she did. And although I don't think that suicide pretty much needs a why, and you shouldn't blame other people for why you want to take your own life, this one really opened my eyes back then, because I had a hard time in school myself, and a lot of this is because of like school people, and yeah, the girl just has some things happen to her that are really horrific, and we all know that depression and such things are like, they're really bad, and sometimes it's just, there's not really much helping sometimes. And I think this book really opened my eyes that there's always something you can do, and maybe you should want to talk to people, and I could really see a lot of the things that happened in the book and the impact this has on persons, and maybe think about bullying. Maybe you shouldn't bully different people. And yeah, so this was really eye-opening when I've read it. And it's, I think, other than like Harry Potter and stuff, and yeah, it was one of the first books I read completely in English, so in the original language it was written in German as a translation, but like the original version of it. And yeah, I don't know, I mean, I put the book in this video because I don't know if it would have the same impact if I read it now. I haven't ever read it again. I've only read it once, and I don't think... Yeah, I would love to read it again for the first time, just to see if, like, now that I'm nearly 28, if I would think differently about the book, or if I would have the same feelings for when I was like 12 or 13 when I've read it the first time. I would be really, really interested in seeing that, because, I mean, a lot of people think really different about it. Yeah. As I've told you, I wouldn't watch the series just because it doesn't end with the book here. And the book does leave it open because the main character is supposed to give the tapes to the next person. Like, she has like a list of people who are supposed to hear the tapes, and we only get one perspective of one of the people who listen to the tapes. But yeah, I think that's all that is needed to get the impact from the book. So yeah. Then for the next one we have a German book by, I think the German author I've read most of, to be honest, and that is Vandermeer. And this book is Die wilde Reise durch die Nacht, which is like the wild journey through the night. I don't know if that's the original English title, but yeah, this is, there are some paintings. I don't know what the name of the person is. Let me see. Oh yeah, the paintings are from Gustave Doré, and Vandermeer pretty much did a story around those paintings. And you have this one, for example. They're all really dark, and pretty much the story is that you have this boy who's on a ship, and the ship is pretty much going down, and he then, in like, whilst dying or being on this dying ship, he sees death and destiny, and they do like a game of dice, and he wants to play with them so to not die. And this is his story, and all of the adventures he has are inspired by these paintings. And this is the only book I really enjoyed that I had to read in school. I didn't really enjoy the rest of them because we had to read a lot of like older German books that aren't really that interesting to me, but this one has like the fantasy aspect, and it's a short book but a really, really interesting book, and so I wish I could read it for the first time again, just to not have to read it with the pressure of reading it for school and having to write about it and stuff, just to enjoy it without any pressure of having to finish it in a certain time, or to have to talk about it with other people, or to write an analysis of like a chapter or stuff. I just would like to read it again for the first time, just for myself. But on the other hand, I would have never found the book probably if I didn't have to read it for school, so maybe it was a good thing I had to read it for school. Who knows? I certainly don't. Yeah, but great book. If you haven't ever heard of it, please pick it up. It's like a really nice journey of like a kid wanting to survive and having an adventure because of death and destiny. So yeah. Next book I have here is The Hobbit. I love this book so much, and reading it for the first time was a really, really, really great experience for me. And especially just not knowing where the story is going, and having like the surprise of the world and all of the stuff that happens to Bilbo, and I really would like to be able to get that again. Just this feeling of the adventure, I don't know, of the unknown out there, and just getting to experience it once again. I would really like that, and yeah. One of my all-time favorite books. I mean, I also love Tolkien's writing style, so no surprise there. But yeah, I think sometimes it's sad that if you've read a book once, you know the story. And I mean, I don't have the best memory, so I tend to forget certain things. And some books I've read twice, and I was afterwards, I was like, did I really read it for the first time before that? Just because I didn't remember a lot of things, but yeah, I've read The Hobbit so many times now that I would like to forget the whole story and just read it once more. But not possible, sadly. I mean, there are so many books out there that I haven't read yet that I'm really gonna be happy to have read for the first time, so it's not like there aren't any other great stories out there, just that sometimes I wish I could read them again without knowing them. The next one, I have to be honest, I probably wouldn't want to read it again because of the length, but because of its impact, I would love to read it again and not know the story, because as I've read it for the first time, I didn't know anything about it because I haven't watched the films, and just the psychological horror in here and all the build-up with the fears and stuff, I would like to experience once again. Also, probably spoiler alert here, but I did know that it could change and it wasn't always the clown, but I didn't know it was female. That was one of the most impactful things of the story, I have to be honest. I just sat here and then I was just like screaming for my partner and was like, did you know that it was female? Because just for some reason that never got into my mind that that was a possibility. And so, yeah, probably could read this again because it's so big that I'm pretty sure that I won't remember all of it. But yeah, in all honesty, I don't think it's a book I'm gonna read again just because it's so massive and it's gonna take me forever to get through it again. Yeah, and I just don't have time for stuff like that, to be honest. I just have too many unread books as that I could read such a big book again. Then we have one of the books that I was really skeptical about buying because I thought that maybe I wouldn't enjoy it. And then I've read it, and it's The Wicker King by K. Ankrum. And if you don't know the story, it is about two guys who are best friends, and one of them starts to imagine this different world, and he pretty much starts living more and more in this different world, and he kind of tries to get his friend into it, and his friend starts to get more worried about him just because of his behavior, and yeah, his maybe has hallucinations. And yeah, first of all I thought it was fantasy. It isn't a fantasy. It is pretty much a really heartbreaking book about psychological hurt and trauma and ways to cope with it, and it's all about life not going the way it is supposed to go. And this is one of those books where I'm like, I don't think if I could read it again, just because it's so heartbreaking, but it's so good at the same time because it shows you just how much trauma affects people and how much they maybe don't know that it affects them, and how much you need to maybe also look out for the signs in your friends and step in at some point to help maybe. And so yeah, this was one of those books where like I picked it up because other people told me it was good, and I didn't think I would like it, and I really loved it, but it broke my heart. And to be honest, now I know the story, which I mean, it would still mean the story is heartbreaking, but I'm prepared for it, you know? And I think it would be a great thing to not be prepared for it and get my heart broken all over again just for this book. I think this one is definitely worth getting your heart broken and living through it with the main character and maybe getting a little bit lost in it. And yeah, if you haven't read it, just like try it. I would really recommend. Also, I love that you can see, like at the beginning, the pages are white with a little bit of dark, and you can, as the book goes on, the pages get ever darker together with the story. And yeah, it's a really visual read as well, just like the design of the pages and stuff, so it really gets you. And yeah, would have never thought that I'm gonna be like, oh, this book that hasn't any fantasy in it, which is pretty much like a contemporary maybe? Just like, I really struggle for the most part with books that aren't sci-fi or fantasy. a horror, just like books that are like about everyday stuff, and to be honest, trauma is also in the everyday for a lot of people, and so I struggle with those books, but this one was really, really impactful, and yeah, would love to read it once again, not knowing the story. And now, for the last book. This one, I've read it a few times now, but I just love how the book is done so much that I would love to experience that once again, and that is Into the Drowning Deep by Mira Grant, or Shauna Maguire, because Mira Grant is her pseudonym, under which she writes a little bit of different books. In this one, there's like this TV channel who does like mockumentaries about like mystic things, and they want to see if there's mermaid out there. And they already did that with one ship, and our main character's sister was on that ship, but that ship never returned. Like, they found the vessel, but it was empty and all the people were gone, and so they sent a second one to get their mockumentary shot, and they sent scientists with it. So the main character is a scientist, to just like do some tests and look at the sea part where they're going, which I can't remember now, but it's like one of those really, really deep trenches in the ocean, and they kind of go there and want to do some scientific searches, but also like be like, oh yeah, there's mermaids, and then like a fake mermaid jumps out, you know, something like that. This is a horror book, so you can imagine what's happening. They do find mermaids, but they might not be the mermaids they want to find, you know. And I would love to be horrified by the mermaids all over again. Like, once you know how they are and how the book is, like how the story goes, it kind of takes the horror out of it a little bit, because it really harps on the point that you don't know what's happening and you don't know what is out there. I mean, they have one person who goes down there in like this submersible, and she goes quite deep, and then you get to read about like this thing swimming past, and she can't see it really, but it looks really creepy and stuff. And like, once you know the story, it's not as creepy anymore, and so I would love to be really creeped out by this book once again, because I really, really loved it. I haven't read a lot of like books about mermaids, and I, for one, am not the biggest fan of like this cutesy mermaid stuff, like with Arya, where you have like the standard mermaid and they're all really nice, and then maybe they don't like the people above the surface, but they're still like this pretty fish people, and I much prefer mermaid like in this one, that is a lot more horrific and is really nice to people, because why would they be? And yeah, it's like, I think that is something I have with a lot of horror books. Like, I would like to not know the story to read them again, because I don't think horror tends to be one of those books where I'm like, yeah, let me read that again, because I know what the horror is, and it loses its creepiness because of knowing the horror. And so I would love to be able to read this one again, just to not know what the horror is and how it's going on and what is happening, just to like be like, oh, okay, let me not know what the story is about. There are so many books. I mean, like The Lord of the Rings, for example, I can read that again and again, and I don't mind knowing the story, because I'm just happy for the adventure that is happening. And yeah, horror sadly isn't one of those genres I can do that with. With sci-fi, alright, let me read the books again. Fantasy, let me read them again. Romance, I tend to read. If I read romance, I tend to read them only once, because then I'm over it pretty much. But yeah, so these are some of the books I would like to read again and not know the story. Maybe leave me down below what books you would like to read again without knowing the story, so maybe I get some good recommendations. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed the video. Leave a like, subscribe. It would mean quite a bit to me, and hopefully I get to see you in the next one. So yeah, bye bye!